Look! Look, the dynamic duo!
Hey guys, welcome to the Dynamic Duo. I'm Franz.
I'm Kevin. Welcome back to Avengers Tower and the Batcave. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are here to discuss all kinds of agendas, politics, and woke issues.
Ooh, this is going to be a serious topic because I think it's an important topic for us to talk about, to think about, to discuss. I've been really, really pissed lately, Kevin, and I'm mad at everybody. My problem is I'm mad at everybody. I'm mad at the fans. I'm mad at the producers. I'm mad at me. I'm mad at everybody. So, what's your thought? How did you want to start this conversation?
Within you being angry, give me a little bit of a insight to your thoughts.
So here's the problem that I'm having. I'm watching these internet, let's call them trolls, that are coming in with hate for these movies. And it's an interesting thing because they're coming for these movies hard and they're trying to ruin the movies, and they take a certain pleasure and joy in the potential failure of these movies. And every time there's a negative news, they're ready to celebrate just how right they were. And they've taken a position, and now they want to be right. And society has gotten to a place where we don't want to be wrong anymore because we think somehow being wrong is a reflection on us and our intelligence and blah, 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 which couldn't be more false. I look forward to being wrong myself personally. Why? Because to be wrong is to realize that you've been making a mistake, which no one should want to continue to make a mistake. And B, you're learning something new. So you're that much smarter than you were literally 5 seconds before you realize that you were wrong. But society is not working that way. And so because so many people have taken a position that these movies are going to fail, now they need for the movies to fail in order for themselves to be right. They'd rather be right than happy, essentially. And so they're rooting for these movies to fail. And that's driving me nuts. It's driving me nuts because I think it's moronic to do that because they're playing with the potential of ruining an industry that they themselves care about, certainly that I care about. I don't want the demise of superhero movies. I want it to go on. I want it to go on the right way, but I want it to go on. Now, that last statement is where the confusion comes in, the right way. Because to be honest with you, Kevin, we can be accused of the same thing. We critique, we analyze these movies, and frankly, we've been quite negative on a lot of the stuff that we've seen. And so we can be accused of the exact same thing. So thinking about that, I realized, well, wait a second, there's a difference. There's a difference between the haters and the analytical people who are trying to see what's happening and who are opining as to what the right direction is. You can recognize the haters because there's glee in their voice. They want failure. The analytical people are analytical. The haters are coming in, Kevin, from all kinds of point of views. You've got people hating on the Superman movie because there's Zack Snyder files and it's Zack Snyder or bust. And they don't want to accept anything that's not Zack Snyder. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a stupid position to be in. That's just, you're hurting yourself. There are people who are like, oh, anti-woke agenda. Everything is woke, and there's a woke agenda, and they hate Disney. They hate anything that has the appearance of being woke, and so they're asking and fighting for, advocating for the demise of the genre because of that. They want Disney to fail. They want Marvel to fail, and so on and so forth. That's not smart. That's not intelligent. That's not our approach. But what pisses me off is that I find myself sometimes in agreement with those guys because the other group that I'm mad at, which is the stupid producers. As wrong as the fans are for having this position of wanting failure, the producers are just as stupid. I don't understand the decisions that they're making. I just don't. From James Gunn to Kevin Feige, from Fantastic Four, so much is riding on the next wave of movies that are coming out. So much is riding. If Superman fails, the DC verse is in trouble for the next maybe 10 to 20 years. Literally the next 10 to 20 years. If the Fantastic Four fails, we've got stuff coming in behind that. We've got the X-Men, and Deadpool has already proven that there's a viable market for this. So Marvel has other things. But if they continue to not handle it right, they're going to continue to mess it up and ruin it. And they're not handling it right. Not from the point of view of woke and Zack Snyder or none of that nonsense. They're not handling it right because they're literally, Kevin, not giving the fans what they're asking for. What's fascinating to me is that they obviously know what the fans are asking for. They obviously understand which material works and which material don't work. They have seen a million times over that the closer you stick to the source material, the more success you have, the more money you make, the more you're well received, and so on and so forth. And yet, what do we have? We have James Gunn taking Superman and changing his costume in such a dramatic way that we don't recognize it's not Superman. It's just not Superman. Like, why would you do that? Like, why would you do that? And why would you, Mr. Gunn? I've seen Gunn in interviews, and he's supposed to be one of us. And I've seen him talk about this stuff like I would talk about this stuff. And yet he's interjecting, comedy into it. There's all kinds of negative rumors that are going on. There's reshoots because he's not getting it right. Kevin, there's a simple way to get it right. The material already exists. It's already there. If you want to make the right Fantastic Four movie, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. All you need to do is open up the plethora of books that are in the library and say, okay, which story was successful? Let's tell that story. So the Fantastic Four is doing a lot of things right. They're doing a lot of things right. But they're introducing a female Silver Surfer, knowing that there's a group out there that is anti-woke, that is worried about this and worried about that, and you're antagonizing that group to to excite them into wanting you to fit. I'm just confused by this whole thing, Kevin, and that's where I'm at with it.
All righty, partner. Now, you said a lot. You said a hell of a lot. I agree with quite a bit of what you said. But I also feel that from a creative and production standpoint, some of their decisions, not all, but some, are made because they are trying to, as you put it, reinvent the wheel. Why are they trying to reinvent the wheel? The answer is complicated but simple at the same time. And what I mean is, within what the producers, directors, and contemporary creators are doing is they're looking back on the days of Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams, Steve Ditko, etc. And they're looking at it as, a bygone era that has had its day and its dance. And they look at it as, okay, those guys were successful. It's over now. It's our turn. The problem with it being their turn is that they are taking those classic characters that you, me, and most of the world grew up with, whether they be female, whether they're black, whether they're Latin American, whether the character was initially seen as maybe gay, but not openly talked about way back when, but maybe they had danced or bounced around the idea of the character being that way. This stuff is being done now because they do feel, with the way that the world has turned itself on its ear, that gender swapping these characters, race swapping these characters is a good thing. It's a bad thing, as you said. You don't go back and reinvent the wheel. You don't go back and take a white wall and all of a sudden paint it blue because somebody said, oh, that white wall doesn't count anymore. And that's what's happened. A lot of this stuff is just being pushed out of the way. You have creative people that, for all of their talents, they're bending to the money, not the creative forces that allowed them to become part of Warner Brothers, DC, Marvel, or whatever the case may be. They're bending because somebody said, oh, if you make the character gay in this issue, we'll pay you an extra $400.
Is that what's happening,
I
Kevin?
think so.
So can you give me examples? You talked about the movies and stuff. Can you give me an example of race swapping or gender swapping?
Race swapping, and I know you did not like the movie, but Ben Affleck's Daredevil. The Kingpin, since his creation, has always been a rotund, big, white guy. When they did the movie, he was big, but it was Michael Clark Duncan.
Are there other examples?
Basically, in this new Spider-Man cartoon that has been done on Disney Plus, Norman Osborn is black. Okay.
So here's my problem. Here's my problem, Kevin. Here's my problem. My problem is we have to be very, very careful not to fall under the wave of propaganda that we're all subject to and vulnerable to. And there's a group of people who have this idea that there's a woke movement out there that's imposing certain things upon us and changing our minds and forcing issues, whether it's gay, whether it's race, whether it's sexuality or female issues. And they're doing that and they're imposing those things, and it's everywhere. And I think it's very important to not fall into that wave and to step back and have an objective point of view as to what's actually going on. We've had how many movies that have come out that are representing, Kevin, these superheroes as white male leads. The vast majority, I'm talking about 80% of the movies that have come out have been the white male character. And so the idea that there's a wave of race swapping, there's a wave of gender swapping, there's a wave of imposition. I think if the evidence shows that it's false, that's not what's happening. Has it happened? Yes. Is there a wave? Is there an agenda? People use the term woke and they don't even know what they're talking about. Woke, people perceive woke as this agenda of imposing, their mentality upon us. But woke means to be awake, is to have your eyes opened, is to not fall for the conventional wisdom that the system tells you is the truth. That's what it means to be woke. And so all the people who are anti-woke are woke because they're against what the system is telling them they think they should think. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So they're wrong in thinking that there's something wrong with being woke, and they're also wrong in their interpretation of what it means to be woke. And what happens is you fall into this category of anti-woke, and then your perspective narrows to that point of view, and all you see is the gender swap, and all you see is the sex swap, and you come out of it thinking, holy shit, like, oh my god, everybody's gender swapping. But Kevin, if you take one little step back, you realize, wait a second, no, that is actually not what's happening. We can go down the list of the Marvel movies that have been produced. We can. If you're starting with Daredevil, let's start before the MCU. Let's start before the MCU. Let's start with Superman. Let's start with Batman 89 and all the other Batman sequels. Let's start with the X-Men. Let's start with I guess we get into the MCU type of era. And we've got Iron Man, we've got Hulk, we've got Thor, we've got Captain America, we've got the Avengers, the vast majority of that. So the question becomes, do we not represent females who represent 50% of this population? Do we not have a Captain Marvel movie? Do we not have a Black Widow movie? Black Widow who has earned the right to have her own movie. Do we not have a Black Panther movie? There was a Black Panther comic book in the 70s, Kevin. Was that woke? There was a Black Widow comic in the 80s. Was that because of woke, or was that because, hey, she's a superhero, and like any other superhero, she deserves a comic book? The one case you could make that says gender swap, but it's not a strong case, is Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel initially was a male character, and now they've made the movie Captain. But it's not a gender swap because she is not Marvel. She is Carol Danvers. It's a title swap. It's not a sex swap. It's not a gender swap. Carol Danvers was Ms. Marvel. She was that character. She was a superhero. She was a badass superhero, by the way. And so the only thing they changed was the title. Instead of calling her Miss Marvel, they're calling her Captain Marvel. But here's the problem that I have with the people who see and look at the woke movement, and they become so irate that they want the downfall of Disney. They want the downfall of the MCU. I hate to say it, I'm going to accuse it that it's a matter of either racism or sexism or homophobia or xenophobia and all those things. Because there are greater, more egregious changes to superheroes than race swapping. What's worse, Kevin? What's a greater crime? Having Michael Clark Duncan, who is one of the few people who can play the Kingpin well. In other words, he's one of the few actors, professional actors, who's big enough to play the Kingpin as the Kingpin, but is black, or Wolverine, who's supposed to be 5'2", being played by a guy who's 6'2". Which is more egregious? And anyone who thinks that Michael Clark Duncan's change is more egregious, I hate to tell you, you're just looking at race. That's the only concern. And that makes you a racist. It doesn't make you a Ku Klux Klan or sheet-wearing racist, but it makes you disconnected because you should be upset at both. And you should recognize one is more egregious than the other. I'm telling you, I'm more upset by Captain America's costume in First Avenger. I'm more upset by what they did to Thor, making him a joke and a comedic character. I'd rather have a black Thor. I don't want a black Thor, please. But I'd rather have a black Thor. Kevin, I'd rather have a black, serious Thor movie that depicts the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, John Buscema, Keith Pollard era of Thor done that way with a black guy than I would Love and Thunder with a guy who's beautifully Thor physically. So we have to be careful what we're thinking. And the decision that we have to make is we have to make two decisions. And it's clear. The decision is, are we going to make the choice to continue to let ourselves to be manipulated into thinking a certain way? Are we going to continue to be stupid? Or are we going to wake up and be woke against the anti-woke people and say, hold on, let me actually see with my own goddamn eyes what's going on? Is Disney woke? Is the MCU actually woke? Is that what's happening, or is it just the exception to the rule rather than the rule? We need to make that decision. Are you going to continue to be stupid and led by other people that are telling you what to do? And the other decision that we need to do is, are we going to be ugly and racist and sexist and stupid? Are we not going to want to have inclusion? Is it not okay to have a Black Panther movie? Is that what we're asking? Is it not okay to have a strong female character? I'm watching these shows, Kevin, on YouTube, and these guys are like, oh, I can't believe the latest description of Sue Storm. Let me read it to you. It says Sue Storm is an independent, strong-guided, and they're going down the list. Do you know when that took place, Kevin? Do you know when it took place that Sue Storm was identified as a strong character that shouldn't take a back seat and that's just as valuable as any member of the Fantastic Four? It took place in the 60s by Stan Lee. It's in the comic book where Sue Storm says, hey, hold on a second. I'm not just another member here. I'm just as valuable. I'm not the damsel in distress. Reed, if you're going to make a decision, I'm going to. Don't leave me behind. So was that woke? Was Stan Lee woke? It's gotten so ridiculous that we have lost perspective to such an extent, Kevin, that people who are Christians, in other words, Christians, followers of Christ, are anti-Christ because they're thinking, I'm conservative and I am anti-woke. And when they run into Christ's message, they go, oh, wait, whoa, that guy sounds too woke for me. So we're losing perspective of what it is. And it's pissing me off because stupidity is leading the way and threatening to destroy very good material that we can all enjoy for the future.
Yeah.
I don't know if that made any sense or if I'm just right.
Well, Yeah, it made a lot of sense. The big one of the other big things that's involved is, how can I put this? Is normally when people disagree and have negative debates, it creates a tension. So
Yeah,
again, not that what you said about the characters is wrong. It's not wrong. Okay. But this is why I've said that some of these folks with money have done this to be able to hopefully generate more money. Now,
so go ahead.
within the same space of what that is, they need to be a little bit more cognizant of what they're doing and, as you said, how to go about it.
I agree with that 1,000%.
Because a lot of it is just, oh, we did this 2 years ago. Let's do it again just because we feel like it. I'll give you an example that goes way back. When Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson were created for Batman and Robin. Okay. There was controversy all the way back then that said these two men are gay and what have you. This isn't a good idea. And DC and the Batman titles at the time, back in the 30s and 40s, had a hard time back then. They had a real hard time. As a matter of fact, the character of Aunt Harriet was created for both the comics and the old 60s TV show to allow certain folks that were complaining back then to say, we have two guys that are putting on tights and capes and they're running around trying to be superheroes. These guys are gay. And she was created to help get rid of some of that tension back then.
Okay.
It's just one of these things. There are ways to do certain things with certain characters and avenues. And as you said before, there is a way to, or with what is going on with society today, everything is just being thrown at people. One of the major things that they're doing with a lot of these reworking and rebirth, reimagined versions of these classic characters is that one of DC's current Robin titles, he's actually having a hard time because he can't figure out his own sexuality within the pages of the book. They've made him at least to have homosexual tendencies for the sake of saying we finally did it.
And what are you trying to say about that? What are you saying about that?
I just, how can I put this? Because this is going to sound wrong.
Okay.
And I don't want us to lose subscribers or anything. I have no real problem with reimagining comic titles, TV shows, movies, or what have you. But if you are going to make such changes, think it through and realize what you're about to do before you do it. And
Which Robin is struggling?
it's not Grayson, but it's one of the ones on one of the alternate.
Oh, one of the alternate Earth.
Yeah.
Kevin, we have to be careful, my friend.
Yeah.
We have to be careful. We have to be careful. We have to be careful. And it's the question I asked earlier. We have to decide who we're going to be.
Right.
And whether or not we're going to be inclusive or exclusive. And we have to be careful not to fall under the wave of propaganda, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Kevin, it's perfectly okay for a Robin to be gay. There are gay people in the world.
Yeah, I'm not
I'm not saying that to you. I'm talking to the audience. I know you better than I know you. I know that whatever you say is not coming from any place of malice. But at the same time, sometimes the perception really alters reality. I remember somebody close to me called me up and he was like, "Oh my God, they're turning Star-Lord gay." And there's a rumor, and then the internet went crazy with it. Star-Lord, and that wasn't the case at all. That wasn't the case at all. Sometimes the perception creates an alternate reality within our own mind. And the key that we have to do when these things happen is we have to step back and say, okay, let's understand what's actually happening. We have an alternate Robin. And so meaning they're keeping Dick Grayson. They're not touching Dick Grayson. And they're saying that we're going to make that character gay. That's an exception to the. Would you like to see all the displays of all the figures that I have? Is that a wave? We have to wake up and say, are they forcing a wave? Are they turning everybody gay? From that one or two or three characters. Is that what's happening? Are they turning Superman gay? Because literally that's the feeling that some people have. It's like they're turning Superman gay. They're turning everybody gay. So we have to wake up and say, is that what's happening? It's not. It's an alternate universe Bat Robin. Second question is it okay to do that? Is it wrong? Kevin, and I'm talking to the audience, there are gay people in this world. And I, as a Black man, understand the importance of representation. I do. And so you have to decide yourself if you're the kind of person that says, nope, sorry, I don't care who you are. I don't like it. Therefore, you're out. And if we can do that for the gays, that means we can do it for the Blacks. We can do it for the this, and we can do it for the that, and and next thing you know, we're quickly fascists. We're quickly in that camp that says, mine and mine only, and let's put everybody else, burn them in a camp somewhere. We got to be careful. We got to be careful in terms of how we think and not to let, right now, you said something that's very, very true. Right now, the internet is leading the way. And you have two groups of people on the internet. You've got people like us that are content producers, content creators, and you've got the audience people that are reacting to what we say. There's an algorithm in the content creator. When they say something, they have a certain group of people that respond to that. So if they say something negative, then everybody who agrees with them feeds their channel. And so it encourages them to continue to say more and more negative, and they go further and further and further because they're trying to, it's like the symbiotic relationship. They're feeding each other. They're giving the audience what they want to hear, and the audience in turn feeds back that content by clicking and subscribing and so on and so forth. And that cycle continues to such an extent that the truth gets lost and disappears and no longer matters. And no, everybody is turning black. Everybody is waist swapping. Did you see what they did to Captain America? Did you see what they did to Miss Marvel and so on and so forth? And we lose perspective of what's actually going on. And that's a danger. And I know I'm spitting against the wind here because cognitive dissonance is a very powerful and strong thing. And nothing I'm going to say is going to change our audience's mind. But for the few who are willing to just be woke, in other words, to be awake and to open your eyes and to think for yourself from all sorts of manipulation, Kevin. The anti-woke, listen, the anti-woke people, right? What do they say? They say, oh, cancel culture. Cancel culture is wrong. Cancel culture is wrong. Cancel culture. Cancel. I hate cancel culture. Look at what the woke people are doing. They're cancel culture. So what do they dedicate their channels to do? To cancel MCU, to cancel Disney, to cancel James Gunn. They are the cancel culture. They are the cancel culture. So you become what you hate. You become what you fear. You become what you're against. And my only advice is take a step back and see the truth rather than be led into some false narrative.
I agree.
And that's beautiful. This level of conversation, I think, is the greatest thing. It's the thing that's lacking. Like, we don't listen to each other anymore. We don't listen to each other anymore. And we don't want to ever be in a position where we, God forbid, change our minds and realize, oh, wait a second, I was wrong in this particular thought. But nobody could be right about everything, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying, holy crap, I was wrong about that. Let me change my perspective because I didn't think of it that way. And I think society is at the same time in a beautiful space. Like, humanity has never been more equitable, more fair, more thoughtful, more like we're on our way to the Star Trek world, the next generation level world where humans get it, and now we have to deal with it. But we're also while we're heading there, we're threatening to ruin it and to go back to the dark ages where it's like you or me and this and this and that. And then we don't accept each other for no damn reason. And if we're not careful, we might fall right back to that place, Kevin. The tribalism that's taking place in this world is out of control. And the problem is it's not smart. It's not intelligent. It's making people stupid. It's making people do things that literally they're fighting against. Let me say it again. The cancel culture people, the anti-cancel culture people are cancel culture. You know what I'm saying?
Just to also clarify, the reason why I brought up the Gay Robin is DC has done some research about the book or looking at their sales figure mine, and the book has basically fallen way off the radar, and I think part of that might be attributed to a lot of what they're trying to do with the character.
That may be true, but it also may be false. So it may be true because the wave of anti-woke thing
Yeah.
has become powerful. It has. It can ruin a movie. Right now, a lot of movies, Superman, Fantastic Four, they're threatening to be ruined because the internet has already deemed that they're bad. I've seen it happen with the DC movies. They've been labeled bad, and everybody just like sheep just accepts, oh, Zack Snyder movies are bad, it's too dark, it's too dark. And we forget, Kevin, that to now the reverse is happening. Now it's Zack Snyder or bust. It's literally Zack Snyder or bust. Zack Snyder is the god. We want to go back to Zack Snyder. And we forget that when Zack Snyder was being Zack Snyder, he was public enemy number one. Where were the warriors, the Zack Snyder's warriors then? So that movement has become powerful enough to have an impact. So it's possible that the reason why the book sales are doing it because people are anti that. But one of the things that ticks me off, that pisses me off, Kevin, is that when we attribute things that are not necessarily true, we say, "Oh, the movie failed because it's clearly it's a woke agenda. They put a female lead." Maybe the movie failed because it sucks. Maybe the movie failed because it sucks. Maybe there's a whole host of other reasons why it failed that has nothing to do with the gender, the sexuality, the race, the blah 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 of the character. By the way, is it the only comic book that's failing? Is Spider-Man not struggling? Is block? I remember a while ago. I remember a while ago. Again, the person who shall remain nameless came to me and said, "Oh well, this was literally a movement. We're gonna make a what's the word? Anti-woke macho comic book where the hero's the hero and he's kind of crass and he's gonna do whatever he's gonna do." And for a little bit, the comic book was getting some traction, and people are like, "You see, this is anti-woke. This is what the audience wants." I can't even remember the name of that character right now, and I genuinely can't remember the name of that book right now. Maybe things fail not because of those reasons, but because the quality is just not good. Maybe that's one of the reasons. You know what I mean? And so when we come to these conclusions, we just have to be careful about what we think. It's so easy to fall into that trap. It's so easy to fall into the trap. Well, they made Robin gay and the sales went down. And they DC, and then well, DC's in trouble because they're making everybody gay, and there's the woke agenda, and now the DCEU is in trouble, and we just go down the line based on a fallacy, which even if it was true, wouldn't be enough. The sales of Robin shouldn't affect what's happening in DCEU, but we make these correlations in our brains because we're trying to make it all make sense and make it fit. And I'm saying, no, think it through. Think it through. First of all, it's important to have representation. Uh, and second, so it's important to have a gay Robin. There are gay people, and there's nothing wrong with someone being gay. I feel silly even saying that, but that's a whole other discussion. Again, my point is we have to be smart. We have to be careful. We have to be thoughtful. We have to be intelligent. We have to think about the issues. And we can't come to the simple conclusions. Oh, he's black, therefore it failed. No, that's not true. If that's the case, then why did everything else fail? Why is the movie industry struggling? Like, do, people are accusing Marvel. Oh my God, Marvel's going down. Marvel, blah, 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 because it's woke. Because it's woke. I have news for you. The movie industry is struggling right now. Movies are not making what they used to, and the worst Marvel movie is it makes more money than the best new unknown movie. You know what I mean? So anyway.
I agree with you. And I don't want our audience to think that I'm anti gay or don't believe in diversity or inclusion because that's not the case.
Facts. And one of the things that's important too, by the way, I applaud your courage to have this conversation with me. and to express this point of view. And we're almost kind of playing a role here to have that full discussion. Um, but the thing that I think we have to do is understand and forget. There are people who have extreme points of views. There are people who are like, "Oh, I don't want a black guy," and believe it or not, even to that person, like I want to hear you. I don't want to just dismiss you because I know that that point of view is coming from someplace, and I am willing to bet that 99.999% that that place that is coming from is false. And I'm just trying to make people open their eyes to see that. All the stereotypes they have against black people, against this person, against that person, it's like, and what's ironic is how sensitive people get when when it affects them. You know what I mean? And it's interesting, and we could end on this note. You've got a situation where 80 to 90% of the material represents a particular group. And that group is feeling shut down. They're feeling hurt. They're feeling upset to the point where they want to boycott. They want to march. They want to shoot somebody up. By the way, they have. They've walked into supermarkets and shot people up. The tension is that much because they're going from 100% to 20% to 90%. So can you imagine? Can you just for a second imagine what the person who was at 0%, what it feels like? If Do you follow what I'm saying, Kevin? Like, in other words,
Of course.
so we just have to have a little bit of empathy for one another. That white person who feels like they're replacing all the white characters cannot sympathize, and he needs to have his white characters. He can't sympathize with a black person who wants to see a black character, or a gay person who wants to see a gay character, or a woman who wants to see a strong woman. Like, you can't empathize for 5 seconds. That's who you're choosing to be. Anyway, I'll end on that note, Kevin. And of course, anything else you'd like to say, you can close us out.
I think that'll do it.
Listen, this show is clearly not catered to be trying to um, win votes or subscribers. We're going to be honest, and you as an audience could either respect it or not. But we're not here to kiss anybody's ass and try to get votes. We're here to tell the truth. So listen, let us know what you think. Let us know if you agree or disagree. Certainly share your thoughts. Do it in a respectful way. Otherwise, don't bother. But we're not afraid of opposing positions. Let us know what you think. And obviously, you'll see that we will treat that opposition with respect rather than just, beat down on people. So let us know and join us next time for the next episode of The Dynamic Duo.